This is your official full honest review and report card grade for WWE Payback 2020 here on the JBSN Media Network YouTube channel. Jeff here with you. It took place from the Amway Center in Orlando, Florida, or as they're calling it, the Thunderdome. So let's just get right on to the action here. They had one match on the kickoff, women's tag team action here. We had Liv Morgan and Ruby Riott, the Riott Squad, taking on the Not-So-Iconics here. Really not a whole lot to say about this match. The Iconics controlled most of the match. They got the vast bulk of the offense, and they worked over Ruby Riott for the vast majority of the time. They kept teasing that Liv Morgan would abandon Ruby Riott as this was going on here. I guess she was having second doubts about what was going on. I'm not sure why they still need to be doing that with the heat between Liv and Ruby. They need women's tag teams in the division. So eventually she comes to her senses. She eventually comes back up on the apron here. She gets the hot tag from Ruby. She runs wild for a while. Unfortunately, there was a bit of a slip up here from Liv Morgan. She was up on the second rope. I'm guessing she was going to go on a crossbody splash. Unfortunately, she slipped off the middle rope here, so a bit of a botch there, but they were kind of able to recover it by having her hit a forearm smash on what I believe was Peyton Royce. Ultimately, in the end, after that, not long later, they were able to have Ruby get the win in the end, won for her team. She hit the Riott kick on Peyton Royce and got the win here. This match went 9 minutes and 2 seconds. I actually gave this match a little bit more time than I thought. I still didn't like the match. I didn't think we needed to actually see it on the show. I gave it a D+. The right team won here, but this was not all that exciting here watching the match, especially when the Iconics got like 80% of the offense, and their offense is not very convincing. So, Riott Squad get the win. 902 D+ is my grade. They opened up the main portion of the show. They jerked the curtain with the U.S. title match here with Apollo Crews defending the title against Bobby Lashley. Of course, MVP and Shelton Benjamin were out there in the corner of Bobby Lashley for this match here. Bobby Lashley got the vast majority of the offense. He got most of the heat in the match here on Apollo Crews. Apollo Crews at one point did hit his standing moonsault, did hit the big splash off the top rope, got a near fall. Lashley at one point hit a Dominator, got a near fall on that. So Lashley just worked him over. Eventually, Lashley was able to get him into the full Nelson, or as they're calling it, the full Lashley, or whatever they're calling it now. The full Nelson. Apollo Crews tried to fight it for a while, but eventually got taken down to the mat, and he eventually tapped out, and that was it. In 9 minutes and 24 seconds, Bobby Lashley, really as expected by a lot of people, including myself, is the new U.S. champion. This was the match that probably should have happened at SummerSlam instead of the rematch with Apollo Crews and MVP. So they did switch the title here. This was not a big surprise here. Afterwards, Apollo Crews did try to attack him, but to no avail. And he says he's going to go for try to get the U.S. title back. I do think they're going to have a rematch here. I gave the match a C+. This was okay. This served its purpose. Nothing really special about the match. It was just there. It wasn't terribly bad. So, Bobby Lashley is a new U.S. champion. 9 minutes, 24 seconds. I gave the match a C+. Next match was Big E taking on Sheamus. This was a match that was announced late here. This was not on the original card, but they had the match here. I actually thought this was a pretty good match overall. Good action here. The bulk of the match saw Sheamus, kind of in an old school fashion. He worked over the left knee of Big E for a while. He was doing a lot of damage to the knee there. So good old school action here. He got most of the heat in the match here. Big E was able to make the rally, though. He did come back on Sheamus. He did eventually, at one point, did try to go for the splash through the ropes. Sheamus caught him one time, but eventually later on in the match, he went for it again and was able to nail it through the ropes. It's still impressive how he's able to pull that off. Just hitting that big running splash through the middle rope there, and he nailed him on the outside. So we just move on here later on. Sheamus was back in control. It looked like he was getting ready to go for his bro kick to try to win the match and end it here. Big E was able to counter it, and he was able to nail him with a power bomb, and then ultimately he hit the big ending and got the win here. So Sheamus takes the fall here. Big E at 12 minutes and 18 seconds does get the win as expected here. There was no reason why Sheamus should have been winning here. The story is with Big E here. Sheamus, this is his role pretty much at this point. His role is a mid-carder, and he's basically here to put other people over. This match was good though. I did like the psychology of the match here. 12 minutes and 18 seconds with Big E getting the win as expected. I gave the match a B. It was actually not a bad match. Pretty good old school action here. I liked it. You had two good workers here. I thought they both told a pretty good story here, but the right outcome with Big E getting the win here, I think, as a lot of people expected here as well. So that's what we had as far as that goes. Next match had Matt Riddle taking on Baron Corbin. This was a result of what happened on SmackDown. So they had the match here. You know, Corbin came out. He was carried to the ring while he was sitting on his throne per the usual setup here. Riddle came out to do his entrance. Corbin nailed him with a big clothesline as he was flipping off his sandals here. Then eventually the match gets underway here. You know, really, this was fine here. Early submission attempts by Riddle early on. He got a sleeper in there, got some MMA submission type moves in here. Corbin was eventually able to take control of the match here. He worked over Riddle for a while. Riddle eventually does make the comeback here. He eventually hit the, I believe, he did not hit the Bro Derek on this occasion. He did hit and eventually won the match in the end at 10 minutes and 57 seconds. He won the match with the floating bro off the ropes. So no Bro Derek on this night, but he did get the win as expected here. This was Corbin's job to put over Matt Riddle in this situation. That's exactly what happened. He won the match, Riddle did. Backstage, we did see Corbin attack Matt Riddle. So this program's obviously going to continue. They're going to have another match, obviously. I gave the match a C+. It served its purpose here. The right outcome with the right guy winning here in Matt Riddle. But it was fine. It was serviceable. It did its job here. Corbin did his part here. Matt Riddle got the win. We're clearly getting another match between these two. So that's as far as what we had as far as that action goes. Next match was the women's tag team title match here. We had Bayley and Sasha Banks, the Golden Role Models, defending the women's tag team titles against Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. Of course, this is coming off what happened on Monday Night Raw, when Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler, all of a sudden they were kind of feuding and fighting with each other, and then they kind of did the deal here where they turned their attention to Bayley and Sasha Banks, and they had the enemies going after the common goal here. So that's what they were going for here. The vast majority of the match here was Bayley and Sasha Banks working over the knee of Nia Jax here. They did that for a while here. Again, the psychology of the match was fine. But ultimately, they get Shayna Baszler. She finally gets into the match. She runs wild for the most part, even though she does take some heat herself. Shayna Baszler ultimately was able to get things rolling here, and ultimately we get to the finish here. This was great. We had, I believe it was Baszler who had gotten Bayley into the Kafita clutch. Sasha Banks was going to try to go in and try to break it up, but she actually got caught into a submission of her own, kind of like a variation of like a cloverleaf submission. So she was kind of being submitted while Baszler had the Kafita clutch on Bayley, and sure enough, at 10 minutes and 18 seconds, Bayley tapped out to the Kafita clutch, and we have new women's tag team champions. Look, this was not a surprise. This is exactly what they had to do here. It tells the story, continues to tell the story of the breakup with Bayley and Sasha Banks. So you had to have them lose the titles here. Very predictable stuff. I think all of us expected this because the bigger story here is with Bayley and Sasha Banks here, not with Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. The fact is, most people really don't want to see Nia Jax on TV. Shayna Baszler, people can get behind. And in all honesty, Shayna Baszler should be focusing more on Asuka, who we did not see, by the way. She did not come out. We never saw her at any point here. So they're clearly going to that Shayna Asuka stuff, but they're the women's tag team divisions champions now. And I mentioned a while ago on the kickoff about the Riot Squad why you need women's tag teams. You need teams to be challenging Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. And again, this tells the story here, that the Bayley and Sasha Banks split is on the way here. We're getting closer and closer to it again. It looks like they're just trying to get to the finish line with it here. So we're down to just Bayley holding the SmackDown Women's title, and I don't think Bayley's going to be dropping that title really anytime soon, to be honest with you. I think that's going to be the catalyst for the Bayley-Sasha Banks stuff that we're going to see coming down the line. But anyways, Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler are the women's tag team champions. Again, this was not a surprise. Everyone pretty much expected this because of the story with Bayley and Sasha Banks. Still, I thought this was a pretty good match overall. Maybe not quite as good as what we've seen from Bayley and Sasha, because I don't know, it felt like something was just off slightly here. I gave the match a B-. Still, it was enjoyable enough. Obviously, the outcome was never in doubt here with Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler winning. So they are indeed the new women's tag team champions. Next up, we had Keith Lee taking on Randy Orton. This is a follow-up to what happened on Monday Night Raw when Randy Orton, quote-unquote, kicked Drew McIntyre 3 times with a punt kick, even though all 3 of them really missed. Especially the first 2 missed badly back in Gorilla. So Keith Lee and Randy Orton, they did have a match on Monday Night Raw. It didn't go very long, and then in the disqualification when McIntyre came out here, which ultimately led to Randy Orton hitting the 3rd punt kick backstage, and that's what sent him to the local medical facility. They updated the fans on the situation when Drew McIntyre saying he had a hairline fracture in the jaw, so he does not have, bleeding of the brain. He doesn't have a fractured skull here, which all sounded ridiculous. Even if the fractured the fractured hairline situation in the jaw sounds kind of ridiculous. I don't know how he would have gotten that. Was it from the wind of Randy Orton's boot hitting the wall twice backstage at Gorilla, or is it from the 3rd one that didn't really look any better? So that's what I'm trying to figure out. So this is a follow-up to that. So Keith Lee and Randy Orton have the match. Keith Lee, much like he did on Raw, he used his power on Randy Orton for a while here. And, of course, I think the people were looking for here in this match with Keith Lee was going to be the music in his wrestling gear. Now, they did change his wrestling theme here on the show. I don't know if it was any better than the theme that he had on Monday Night Raw. If this theme was any better, I don't know. You guys have to let me know on that situation. Now, he did have different wrestling gear on as well. He did have his shorts back, so he didn't have the kind of the skirt type situation there with the combination of like a skirt and dress or whatever you want to call that. So he at least had his regular trunks here. He's still wearing the shirt over the top. So anyways, they go to have the match here. Really not much to say about this match. I mean, Keith Lee uses his power initially. Randy Orton eventually gets back control. He did the deal like he did on Raw, where he caught Keith Lee coming in with the DDT as he was coming in through the ropes. So he did that. And again, it looked like Randy Orton was going to set up for the win here with an RKO. He was, pouncing on him. Once he got control, getting ready to go for his RKO. He goes to go for it. Keith Lee catches him and actually nailed him with a big looking spirit bomb. And I thought for sure Randy Orton was going to kick out of it, but no, that was it. Keith Lee in 6 minutes and 41 seconds actually got what I thought was the most shocking win and surprising win on the entire show here. And shocking and surprising for the fact it only went 6 minutes and 41 seconds. And Keith Lee, he won clean here. There was no shenanigans from anybody. Nobody came out. We did not see Drew McIntyre. We did not see Ric Flair. Nobody came out here to do anything. He beat him clean right in the middle of the ring here with a spirit bomb. And Randy Orton did not kick out. I thought for sure he was kicking out. But that was it. He beat him surprisingly clean here. Now, I expect this will continue, but this was a big feather in the cap for Keith Lee. I thought for sure Randy Orton was winning this. I didn't think Randy Orton would lose twice in 1 week on pay-per-view here clean. But that's exactly what happened here, and nobody came out after the match. Nobody did anything. Keith Lee got the win, and that was it. Randy Orton doing a clean job yet again, which I was surprised. I didn't think they would go for that, but they did. I give the match a C. This was pretty basic. This was very similar to what we saw on Monday Night Raw here, but Keith Lee got what I felt was the most surprising win here on the entire show. Next match is going to be the tag team match. We had Dominic Mysterio and Rey Mysterio Jr. teaming up to take on Seth Rollins and Buddy Murphy here. This was, I thought, was a very good match as well here. We had, the vast majority of the time, at least early on in the match, was Rey Mysterio getting worked over here by Rollins and Murphy. He took a lot of the heat early on. Eventually, Dominic did get into the match. He ran well for a little bit, but eventually he took some heat as well. So that we just go back and forth. The heels are back in control late in the match. But ultimately, Seth Rollins called for Buddy Murphy to kick. I think it was going to be Ray or Dominic, whichever one it was, but they reversed it, and Buddy Murphy wound up incidentally and accidentally kicking Seth Rollins. Eventually, he gets taken out of the equation there, and And eventually what happens is that Rey Mysterio Jr. tags in Dominic. He eventually does hit the 619 on Buddy Murphy, and then he went up top and he nailed the big splash off the top, and that was it. At 15 minutes and 58 seconds, Rey Mysterio Jr., Dominic Mysterio, they get the win here as expected. This was not a big surprise here. The right outcome here. And the fact is, I think everyone pretty much knew who was going to be taking the fall in this match, which was Buddy Murphy, of course. And I think pretty much the vast majority of people figured out who was going to get the winning pinfall here. That would be Dominic. So this match served its purpose. This was very predictable as well, and it served its purpose, and it's going to continue, obviously, because on Raw we're going to have Seth Rollins and Rey Mysterio Jr. in a one-on-one encounter. So this program's obviously going to continue with these four. So I gave the match here, I gave this a B. This was alright. I thought very good stuff here overall. You had three good workers here with Rey Mysterio Jr., Seth Rollins, and Buddy Murphy here. Dominic, of course, still quite a bit green here, but he's able to hold his own here, as I thought he did here as well. They kind of protected him again a little bit, but again, the right outcome here with the Mysterios getting some payback. That's the name of the pay-per-view here. So they do get some measure of revenge here, and this was the right outcome, and we'll see what happens with Seth Rollins and Rey Mysterio Jr. on Raw. Your main event for the night was the Universal Title Triple Threat No Holds Barred match. Bray Wyatt, the Fiend, defending the title against Braun Strowman and Roman Reigns. Now they go to have the match here, and Wyatt's coming out to his long entrance here. Braun Strowman out of nowhere just jumped Bray Wyatt in the ring, and the bell rung, and they went underway here. No sign of Roman Reigns here, and that would be the case for quite a while here. This was not a very good match. This essentially was a rematch from SummerSlam, and they were just going at it. They eventually worked their way up the stage here. They did a spot where Strowman attacked Bray Wyatt, and they did a dive off the stage to a table down to the floor. Again, that didn't look all that exciting either. So they eventually worked their way back up to the ring area. Eventually they did a deal here where when I think it was Strowman who was going to suplex Wyatt off the ropes here, and they did the ring exploding situation again. They did that angle here where the ring exploded when the big superplex spot off the ropes happened. I didn't think this was not nearly as good as what they originally did all those years ago. So they did all that, so they're laid out here. The ring collapsed. Eventually Roman Reigns does come out here. He comes out with Paul Heyman. He officially signs the quote contract, even though it was already advertised. So he eventually comes out here. He tries to do his thing. He tries to cover both guys right away. Both guys were able to kick out initially. Roman Reigns looking upset, but ultimately in the end, 12 minutes and 39 seconds, he did hit the spear on Braun Strowman and got the pin, and sure enough is the new Universal Champion. This was expected here, and again, no surprise here that Roman Reigns won. Everyone expected it here, and we all knew who was taking the fall here was Braun Strowman, so you pretty much get him out of the picture now. He goes on to do his thing. The focus is going to be on Roman Reigns and the Fiend. Bray Wyatt's essentially turning babyface here. Roman Reigns is a heel. Braun Strowman is a heel. I don't see Braun Strowman being back in the picture anymore. For Roman Reigns to come out here in like the last 2-3 minutes to actually participate in the match, I don't know. This was not a very good match. Did not enjoy this at all. The booking of this match was terrible. The outcome was predictable. Obviously, you tell the story with Roman Reigns being with Paul Heyman now. What does this mean for Brock Lesnar? I still don't think Brock Lesnar is really coming back anytime soon, but maybe they'll surprise me. But that was it. They had Roman Reigns with Paul Heyman holding the title as they went off the air, and that was it. I give this a D-. This was not a very good match. Easily the weakest match of the entire night. The booking this match was just absolutely terrible. So that was it. That was Payback that took place from the Amway Center in Orlando, Florida. My official grade for WWE Payback 2020 is a C+. Now, this was actually not bad. I was hovering up in the B category for a while, but eventually I did drop it back down to a C+. The last match on the show didn't do anything for me. Kind of took it down now. This show did end by about 9:30 Eastern time, which was nice. They were able to get it all in 2.5 hours, so that was actually pretty good. I didn't mind that. There were definitely some good matches on the show. I mean, a lot of good matches, not really great matches, but good matches. It served its purpose. I still didn't think they needed to do the show here. They could have, built more things up here. But again, really no big surprises outside of Keith Lee and Randy Orton. I thought everything else was vastly predictable here in the show. and it served its purpose. Again, they really didn't need to have this event, and I believe this was the first time since 1991, back when it was WWF at the time, had the Survivor Series, and then they did the Tuesday in Texas thing here. So they're trying a little experiment to see if it worked. It wasn't bad, but I didn't think they needed to do this show. But again, my official grade for WWE Payback 2020 is a C+. Let me know down in the comment section below what your favorite match was, and if you agree with my thoughts and my grade. And we'll see you the next time with the next review here on the YouTube channel. Bye for now, everyone.